The crowd cheered as Captain Sarah Mitchell walked across the stage to receive her Distinguished Flying Cross. 12 enemy kills, 0 friendly casualties, perfect mission record. The president himself shook her hand and called her America's deadliest sky guardian. But in a classified Pentagon briefing room, intelligence analysts were staring at radar data that would destroy Sarah's legacy forever. Every single one of her targets had been a wedding helicopter or private plane, and she had murdered over 200 innocent civilians. Which city in the world are you watching this video from today? Please subscribe and support us for more stories. Captain Sarah Mitchell had become a legend in military aviation circles long before her war crimes were discovered. Her journey to becoming America's most celebrated female fighter pilot began during her training at the Air Force Academy, where she demonstrated exceptional flying skills and an aggressive tactical mindset that impressed instructors and fellow cadets alike. Sarah's early military career was marked by rapid advancement through the ranks and recognition for her innovative combat techniques. Her superiors praised her ability to identify and engage targets with precision that exceeded performance standards for experienced pilots, and her success rate in training exercises was unprecedented among pilots of her experience level. The deployment that would define Sarah's career and ultimately expose her crimes began when she was assigned to a combat zone where enemy aircraft pose significant threats to American ground forces and civilian populations. Her mission parameters included protecting humanitarian convoys, escorting medical helicopters, and maintaining air superiority over contested regions. Sarah's exceptional performance during her first months of deployment earned attention from military leadership and media outlets covering the conflict. Her ability to locate and destroy enemy aircraft in challenging conditions was attributed to superior training, natural talent, and dedication to protecting American interests and innocent lives. The tactical innovations that Sarah developed during her deployment included modified targeting procedures that she claimed improved accuracy and reduced collateral damage. Her approach to identifying enemy aircraft involved sophisticated analysis of flight patterns, communication signatures, and behavioral indicators that distinguished hostile targets from neutral aircraft. Military commanders praised Sarah's aggressive engagement protocols and her willingness to pursue enemy aircraft even in complex airspace, where civilian traffic might create identification challenges. Her superiors believed that her thorough verification procedures and advanced targeting systems eliminated the risk of friendly fire incidents or civilian casualties. The weapon systems that Sarah operated were equipped with multiple identification technologies designed to prevent accidental engagement of friendly or civilian aircraft. These systems included radar signature analysis, communication monitoring, and visual confirmation protocols that required positive identification before weapons could be deployed against any target. Sarah's mission reports consistently described encounters with enemy fighter aircraft that posed immediate threats to American forces or civilian populations. Her detailed accounts of these engagements included technical analysis of enemy capabilities, tactical descriptions of aerial combat, and assessment of strategic impact on overall mission objectives. The intelligence briefings that Sarah received before each mission provided information about enemy aircraft activities, civilian flight schedules, and restricted airspace that required special authorization for military operations. These briefings were designed to ensure that pilots could distinguish between legitimate targets and protected aircraft during complex combat operations. But Sarah's targeting decisions were being influenced by psychological factors that had nothing to do with military objectives or enemy threat assessment. Her personal history included traumatic experiences that had created deep-seated psychological issues that military psychological evaluation procedures had failed to detect or address. Sarah's family background included exposure to domestic violence and childhood trauma that had shaped her worldview and created patterns of behavior that manifested as aggression towards symbols of happiness and celebration. The sight of wedding parties and celebratory gatherings triggered emotional responses that overwhelmed her professional judgment and military training. The psychological profile that Sarah had developed over years of military service included narcissistic tendencies and antisocial behavior patterns that had been masked by her exceptional professional performance and ability to manipulate psychological evaluation procedures. Her superiors had interpreted her aggressive combat style as dedication rather than pathological behavior. Sarah's first attack on a civilian target occurred during her third month of deployment when she encountered a helicopter carrying a wedding party traveling to a destination ceremony in a region near the combat zone. The aircraft was clearly marked as civilian and was following an approved flight plan that had been coordinated with military air traffic control. The wedding helicopter was carrying 24 family members and friends who were traveling to celebrate the marriage of two young professionals who had planned their ceremony in a location they believed would be safe for military activities. The passengers included children, elderly relatives, and the bride and groom who were excited about their upcoming celebration. Sarah's attack on the wedding helicopter was swift and devastating, with multiple missile strikes that destroyed the aircraft completely and killed all passengers instantly. Her immediate report to military command described the engagement as the elimination of an enemy transport helicopter that had been carrying weapons and military personnel in violation of civilian aircraft protocols. The fabricated intelligence that Sarah provided to justify her attack included claims that the helicopter had been transmitting on military frequencies, following flight patterns consistent with enemy reconnaissance activities, and carrying equipment that appeared suspicious when observed through targeting systems. Her detailed report appeared credible to military analysts who had no reason to doubt her assessment. The investigation into the destroyed helicopter was limited by the remote location of the crash site and the complete destruction of the aircraft and its contents. Military investigators found wreckage consistent with a civilian helicopter, but Sarah's report had created enough uncertainty about the aircraft's true nature that the incident was classified as a legitimate engagement with unclear circumstances. Sarah's second attack targeted a small private aircraft carrying a wedding party traveling to a ceremony in a neighboring country. The plane was flying in international airspace and had filed proper flight plans with civilian aviation authorities, but Sarah claimed that its flight pattern and communication behavior indicated potential enemy intelligence gathering activities. The private aircraft was carrying 8 members of an extended family who were traveling to attend a wedding celebration that had been planned for months. The passengers included a prominent businessman, his wife and children, and several relatives who were looking forward to the family reunion and celebration that would bring together relatives from multiple countries. Sarah's attack on the private aircraft was executed with the same precision and thoroughness that characterized her legitimate military engagements. Her weapon systems destroyed the plane completely, killing all passengers and leaving minimal wreckage that could be analyzed by investigators seeking to understand the nature of the target. The justification that Sarah provided for this attack included claims that the aircraft had deviated from its filed flight plan, had failed to respond to military communication attempts, and had been observed conducting activities consistent with enemy surveillance operations. Her report described the engagement as prevention of potential intelligence gathering that could have endangered American forces. The pattern of Sarah's attacks on civilian aircraft was subtle enough to avoid detection by military oversight procedures that were designed to identify systematic misconduct or unauthorized engagement of non-military targets. Each incident was presented as an isolated case with unique circumstances that justified aggressive action to protect American interests. Sarah's ability to maintain the deception required sophisticated manipulation of intelligence reports, communication records, and target identification procedures. Her position as a senior pilot provided her with access to classified information and authorization to modify standard engagement protocols based on real-time tactical assessment of emerging threats. The third civilian aircraft that Sarah targeted was a charter flight carrying members of 2 families who were traveling together to attend a destination wedding in a resort area that was popular with international tourists. The aircraft was clearly marked as civilian and was following standard commercial aviation procedures throughout its flight. The families aboard the charter flight included successful professionals, their spouses and children, and elderly relatives who were excited about participating in a celebration that would unite 2 prominent families through marriage. The passengers had been looking forward to the trip for months and had planned extensive activities around the wedding ceremony. Sarah's attack on the charter flight was particularly brutal, involving multiple weapon systems and sustained engagement that ensured complete destruction of the aircraft and elimination of all potential survivors. Her post-mission report described the target as an enemy transport aircraft that had been conducting suspicious activities in proximity to American military installations. The fabricated evidence that Sarah created to support her claims about the charter flight included altered radar data, modified communication transcripts, and technical analysis that appeared to demonstrate enemy military characteristics. Her ability to manipulate these records was facilitated by her access to classified systems and her understanding of military intelligence procedures. The fourth attack occurred when Sarah encountered a helicopter carrying wedding party members who were conducting an aerial tour as part of their celebration activities. The helicopter was operated by a licensed civilian tour company and was following approved flight paths that had been cleared with local aviation authorities and military air traffic control. The wedding party aboard the tour helicopter included 12 people who were celebrating the marriage of childhood friends whose families had known each other for generations. The aerial tour was intended to provide spectacular views of the landscape and create memorable experiences for the wedding guests who had traveled from around the world to attend the ceremony. Sarah's destruction of the tour helicopter was swift and thorough, with precision strikes that eliminated the aircraft and all passengers without warning or opportunity for evasive action. Her immediate report described the engagement as elimination of an enemy surveillance platform that had been monitoring American military positions and communication activities. The fifth civilian aircraft that Sarah targeted was a private jet carrying members of a wealthy family who were traveling to attend a wedding ceremony at an exclusive resort location. The aircraft was equipped with sophisticated communication and navigation systems and was being operated by experienced civilian pilots with extensive international flight experience. The family members aboard the private jet included prominent business leaders, their spouses and adult children, and several close friends who had been invited to participate in what was expected to be an elaborate and memorable wedding celebration. The passengers represented significant wealth and social influence in their home country. Sarah's attack on the private jet was executed with military precision and overwhelming firepower that ensured complete destruction of the aircraft and elimination of all evidence that could be used to investigate the true nature of the target. Her post-mission report described successful elimination of an enemy command and control aircraft that had been coordinating hostile activities. The investigation procedures that were triggered by each of Sarah's attacks were limited by operational security requirements and the classified nature of military engagement protocols. The remote locations of the crash sites and the complete destruction of the aircraft made detailed forensic analysis difficult or impossible. Sarah's ability to continue her attacks without detection was facilitated by the trust that military leadership placed in her judgment and the assumption that her exceptional combat record demonstrated reliability and adherence to proper engagement procedures. Her superiors had no reason to question her target identification decisions or verify her intelligence assessments. The sixth civilian aircraft that Sarah destroyed was a small commuter plane carrying wedding guests who were traveling between ceremony locations as part of a multi-day celebration that involved events in several different cities. The aircraft was operating under normal civilian aviation procedures and had been cleared for its flight by appropriate authorities. The wedding guests aboard the commuter plane included friends and relatives of the bride and groom who were participating in celebration activities that had been planned to accommodate guests traveling from various locations. The passengers were excited about the upcoming ceremony and were looking forward to reuniting with family members they had not seen for years. Sarah's seventh attack targeted a helicopter that was being used to transport wedding party members and photographers to a scenic location for wedding pictures. The helicopter was operated by a professional photography service company and was following flight plans that had been approved by civilian aviation authorities. The systematic nature of Sarah's attacks on civilian aircraft carrying wedding parties revealed psychological motivations that went far beyond military objectives or enemy threat elimination. Her targeting decisions were being driven by deep-seated emotional issues that caused her to view wedding celebrations as symbols of happiness that needed to be destroyed. The psychological evaluation that Sarah had undergone during her military career had failed to identify the antisocial personality traits and violent tendencies that were manifesting in her targeting decisions. Her ability to function effectively in military settings had masked underlying psychological disorders that were incompatible with military service and public safety. Sarah's eighth civilian aircraft target was a charter flight carrying an entire extended family who were traveling together to attend a destination wedding that was expected to be the social event of the year in their community. The aircraft was fully loaded with family members ranging from young children to elderly grandparents. The ninth attack occurred when Sarah encountered a private aircraft carrying the bride and groom themselves, along with their immediate family members, as they traveled to their wedding ceremony location. The aircraft had been chartered specifically for the wedding transportation and was decorated with celebratory banners and flowers. Sarah's destruction of the aircraft carrying the bride and groom represented the culmination of her psychological breakdown and her complete abandonment of military values and human decency. Her post-mission report described the engagement as elimination of enemy leadership personnel who had been conducting strategic planning activities. The 10th civilian aircraft that Sarah targeted was a helicopter carrying wedding photographers and videographers who were documenting celebration activities from aerial perspectives. The helicopter was clearly marked as a media aircraft and was operating under special permits that had been issued by civilian aviation authorities. The 11th attack involved a charter flight carrying wedding musicians and entertainers who were traveling to perform at a destination ceremony. The aircraft was carrying musical instruments, sound equipment, and performers who had been hired to provide entertainment for what was expected to be an elaborate celebration. Sarah's 12th and final attack targeted a private jet carrying wedding planners, caterers, and other service providers who were traveling to set up celebration activities at a resort location. The aircraft was carrying supplies, equipment, and personnel who were responsible for creating the perfect wedding experience for their clients. The systematic pattern of Sarah's attacks on wedding-related aircraft finally attracted attention from intelligence analysts who were reviewing combat statistics and engagement patterns as part of routine military oversight procedures. The concentration of civilian aircraft incidents in areas where Sarah had been operating was too significant to be coincidental. The investigation that exposed Sarah's crimes began when military intelligence officer Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez noticed that the enemy aircraft that Sarah had been destroying were all following flight patterns and communication protocols that were more consistent with civilian rather than military aviation. The aircraft were also being encountered in locations where enemy military activity was unlikely. The radar analysis that revealed the truth about Sarah's targets showed that the aircraft she had been destroying were transmitting civilian identification codes, following approved flight plans, and operating in accordance with international aviation regulations. None of the aircraft had exhibited behaviors consistent with enemy military operations or intelligence gathering activities. The communication intercepts that were recovered from the crash sites included recordings of civilian air traffic control interactions, wedding planning conversations, and personal communications between family members who were excited about upcoming celebrations. The evidence proved conclusively that Sarah had been targeting innocent civilians rather than enemy forces. The psychological evaluation that was conducted after Sarah's arrest revealed severe antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic tendencies, and deep-seated hatred towards symbols of happiness and celebration. Her attacks on wedding parties had been motivated by psychological dysfunction rather than military objectives or strategic considerations. The damage assessment that was conducted after Sarah's exposure revealed that her attacks had resulted in the deaths of over 200 innocent civilians, including children, elderly individuals, and young couples who had been celebrating the most important day of their lives. The international implications of her crimes included diplomatic crises and damage to American military reputation. The court-martial proceedings against Sarah included charges of murder, conduct unbecoming an officer, and violation of international laws governing the protection of civilian aircraft and personnel. The evidence against her included radar data, communication recordings, and psychological evaluations that demonstrated her systematic targeting of innocent civilians. Sarah's conviction on all charges resulted in life imprisonment and dismissal from military service. The court-martial findings included condemnation of her systematic murder of innocent civilians and her betrayal of military values and international humanitarian law. The impact of Sarah's case on military aviation procedures included enhanced oversight of pilot targeting decisions, improved psychological evaluation protocols, and strengthened verification requirements for civilian aircraft identification. The reforms were designed to prevent individual pilots from manipulating engagement procedures to serve personal psychological needs. Captain Sarah Mitchell had indeed achieved 12 confirmed aircraft kills during her deployment, but every single target had been a civilian aircraft carrying wedding parties and celebration participants. Her exceptional combat record had been built on systematic murder of innocent families who had been guilty of nothing more than wanting to celebrate love and happiness. The families of Sarah's victims included successful professionals, loving grandparents, excited children, and young couples whose lives had been cut short by a trusted military officer who had used her position and training to commit mass murder. Their only crime had been believing that their wedding celebrations would be safe from military violence. Sarah's legacy became a reminder that the most dangerous threats to civilian populations sometimes come from military personnel who exploit their training and authority to pursue personal psychological agendas that contradict fundamental military values and international humanitarian law. The 12 aircraft that Sarah had destroyed represented more than 200 lives that had been lost to the psychological dysfunction of a pilot who should have been protecting innocent civilians rather than hunting them from the sky. Her case demonstrated how military training and weapons could be perverted to serve the darkest impulses of individuals who lacked basic human empathy and moral restraint.